Mentioned many times that this is probably the most important day of the year for me. It's a day that, on the surface of it should appear to be very tragic. But when you begin to understand the underlying meanings of what took place on this day, it wasn't a tragic day. In fact, it was a day to truly feel gratitude and rejoice, and to truly be with the soul of one's teacher that evolved into a state of enlightenment. Because that's what Samadhi is. It's really the place that every soul that's born onto this planet has to ultimately go, whether it's in this lifetime or who knows, 100 lifetimes down the road. And it's something that, requires a depth of need, a depth of commitment, inner work, a great deal of patience, and the ability to overcome every conceivable obstacle that will stand in the way. The years that I spent with Rudy, I saw him do that. He was capable of transforming any particular obstacle, any negative situation, into something that worked for him, that helped him to grow, that truly brought him to a state in himself that he was ready to truly embrace God. And to me, since I was a kid, it was always what I was looking for, somebody who was capable of doing this. And I found that it was a miracle of God to have been introduced to this person, to have spent 6 years with him, to have learned so much from him, to have been there while he basically saved my life and put me on a path, to spend this life teaching and evolving, in a spiritual way. So the gratitude is really the key. This is not a time for sorrow. It's not a time for unhappiness. It's not a time to cry and lament and all that. It's a time for deep gratitude. So my daughter came by my apartment today, and she brought flowers and she wished me a happy second birthday. It was very cute and very wonderful, because in many ways today is like a birthday for me. It's like a day of truly being resurrected and coming alive. And the recognition above everything else, when I saw Rudy, lying there, and recognized that he really had passed on, the recognition that now I'll see what the last 6 years were really about. It wasn't while I was with him, undergoing his tutelage and training. Yes, that was essential. But what did I take away from that? What can I use in my life to continue on the spiritual path, to continue to grow? And if gratitude is missing, then the whole thing, really had no purpose. So it's great, the gratitude that this incredible being invested time and energy to help me find a deep inner life. And that the ultimate goal of all of this is to attain Samadhi. And when somebody attains Samadhi, that is not something for us to cry about, to lament about, to be sad about. It's really a joyous occasion. It's an occasion that truly allows us to recognize that ultimately each and every one of us have to do exactly the same thing. As I say, whether it's in this lifetime or God knows 100 lifetimes down the road, we all ultimately have to make that kind of commitment to God. And that kind of commitment, requires taking up in our lives, service to God, opening to God, gratitude to God, gratitude to Spirit, gratitude to everything that manifests around us that is teaching us about ourselves and how we can truly evolve and become enlightened beings. So today, to me, is not a sad day. Ordinarily, it would be a sad day to most people, but it's a day to rejoice. It's a day to remind me and hopefully everyone else that in this life we can attain a state of enlightenment. We can attain a state of samadhi that enables us to become one with higher energy and enables us to truly ultimately step off of this carousel of life, this wheel that is endlessly spinning. And on the carousel is all the suffering and the pain and all the conflict and problems that people live with every day while they're here. We can step off it, but we don't step off it unless the work is done on ourselves, unless we truly prepare ourselves. It's like baking a cake. You got to really prepare and knead the dough and prepare everything and before you put it in the oven. Well, hopefully, in this period, we will also be put in the oven, God's oven. And it will really produce a state of very high consciousness, very high enlightenment. And I know in my own heart, all I feel is gratitude to Rudy for what he left, what he bequeathed, what he gave me while he was alive, and what the meaning of samadhi truly is. Because the meaning of samadhi is not the day we die. It's everything we do to prepare ourselves for that day. That really is the meaning of samadhi. How deeply we work on ourselves, how deeply we open, how prepared we are to make that transition. And I think when a person begins to understand how relevant this is to their daily life, it changes them. They begin to look at the world differently. And as I've said many times, it doesn't mean we walk away from our families. Everything just gets richer. Everything becomes more of a teacher. Every member of our family is showing us what we have to do to get to God. Whether we like what they do or we don't like what it doesn't matter, It's all part of an education. And, the education I had with Rudy, it was beyond, there was no value I could have placed on it. No monetary value, no any kind of value I could have placed upon what he passed on. And what did he really pass on? To not only me, but to everyone that's here. He passed on this very brilliant and extraordinary exercise that he created that can make it possible for anyone who does it and really works on themselves to attain a state of samadhi. This is kind of a miracle, because where in the world do you find anything like that? Just a simple little exercise, learning how to breathe properly, how to use the mind properly, how to use your will properly, your need properly, how to use the breath properly. To do what? To build an inner life that is strong enough to ultimately become one with higher energy in the universe. This is what he left. I know there are millions of stories about Rudy, and God knows you can hear them forever. But to me, the most sacrosanct, the most sacred thing that he left to myself and to anybody who truly follows what he did in his life and his teachings is this double breathing exercise. Because that was the key, it was the foundation, it was truly the source of everything he taught. And it made it possible for anyone that studied with him to truly learn what he had to teach. Because you didn't learn it in your head. As I've said many times, I sat through, God knows, 1,000 lectures that Rudy gave. I can't remember one of them. Every single one of them is inside me. Simply because while he was giving those talks, I was open inside. I was receiving the Shakti, the energy, the real nurturing, the real value of what he was talking about. And I think, to me, the key to that was just simply doing the double breathing exercise. I mean, I met lots of teachers. I never heard of anybody teaching anything like it. And it's like hitting the nail on the head. You know, it goes right to the core of what it means to have a spiritual life. How to build a system that's strong enough to live in the world and to be free in the world and to be connected with God, attached to God while we live in the world. And all of that creative energy flows into our lives. And it gives birth to so many things around us, you know, that are almost imperceptible unless we have the kind of opening that a chakra system gives us. So I really asking, let's make this class not about, you know, I don't think any of you here have ever met Rudy, you know, but let's make it about joy. Let's make it about love. Let's make it about gratitude. Let's make it about hearts that are dancing, love that is inside us, gratitude that we can be here doing this meditation and opening, you know, to what the universe has to teach us and to what everyday life has to teach us. And I think doing that will, you know, will really not only help each and every one of us, but it really gives support to Rudy as he evolves and continues on his journey, you know, to ultimately, you know, become one with energy that is infinite in the universe. So everybody will have a meditation. And after the meditation, if there are any questions, I'll be happy to try and answer them. So, you know, what I was talking about before the class is so relevant to not only having a spiritual life, but to truly finding a way to be a happy person living in the world, finding a way, you know, to look at things so that, you know, whatever it is that comes into our purview, it really has to do with teaching us what we have to do to grow in our lives. Now, this is something you can't do intellectually. It would be impossible. You would make yourself crazy by the end of the day. But it's through the inner development of a chakra system that this becomes possible. Because we're no longer thinking about life, we're living it. We are completely and totally embracing life. And you know, when we look at people, we look at all the different things that have happened in our lives. Instead of choosing to be sad and to be unhappy and to be, you know, we find in the situation what truly has taught us something profound about ourselves. And I don't think there's anybody who comes into my life, at least, who doesn't have something to teach me. And if I get upset at them or whatever, it's only because I haven't found a deeper way of connecting with them. And when I look at Rudy and I look at, you know, basically the shortness of his life and the 6 years I spent with him, I am so profoundly and deeply grateful for those 6 years, that they are noble. They absolutely reach a pinnacle of, well, you know, human connection, what I learned from him in those 6 years. So instead of looking at loss, we have to look at what did this person bring into my life? What did this person give me? Is my heart more open? Am I deeper in myself because of that person? What amazing, teachings do they have to give me about what I have to do with my life and how I have to grow? I mean, I once had two students, a couple, and they were, husband and wife, and she got pregnant. She was about 45 years old. And I used to go to her house all the time and do healing work with her and try to help her get through the pregnancy. But one of the things I noticed that was extraordinary is that that pregnancy made that family get so close together. I never saw them treat each other that way in all the years I had known them. And then, the woman had a miscarriage. She had twins in her. It wasn't just one kid. She had twins and she had a miscarriage. And they asked me to do a memorial service, to talk at a memorial service. And I told them exactly that. I said, these children, I mean, you know them for 5 months, 4 months. They did more to make your family recognize how much you love each other and how close you have to be with each other than in all the years I've known you. And maybe that was their purpose, to find gratitude for what they brought into your life, instead of spending all your time, crying and moaning and lamenting and complaining. And they had a purpose. Every human being has a purpose. The problem is that we don't recognize that purpose. We don't recognize how much they bring into our life, how much they change us. So all we see is the negative. And of course, that creates negative tension in us, and it makes it very difficult for us to continue to grow and develop a spiritual life. Rudy was the same way, I mean, he told me he was going to live to 84 years old. And he didn't tell me this once. He told me this, 100 times. Or maybe I'm exaggerating, 60 times. He also told me he was going to be in a plane crash. But he didn't tell me I was going to be in the plane with him. So all of these things were made possible. And on top of all those things, he said to me, don't mourn me.
It's 2 o'clock.
When I'm gone. Don't cry. Don't be unhappy. Learn what I have to teach. Use it to build your inner life so that you can get closer and closer to God. That is why I am in your life. That is what I'm here to do. And, I heard that also, God knows how many times, until it finally penetrated. It penetrated that there is no life, there is no death. There's a soul that evolves endlessly into the universe, into infinity, into eternity. And that soul takes on many different shapes and forms, to learn what it has to learn in order to finally get to God. But after hearing so many times these things from him, they finally began to penetrate. And the incredible thing is, when he died, when I got out of that plane, I was knocked unconscious for about 5 or 10 minutes. But when I woke up and I got out of the plane and Bo told me that Rudy had passed on, I didn't feel lost. I felt his soul force living in my heart. I felt that he was still alive. And to this day, I feel he is still alive. And to this day, I ask him to come and teach these classes. And I ask him to give me the strength and help me with the strength that I need in order to do what my karma, has to really take care of in this lifetime. So he's never been gone, ever. And it's the same way with our parents, children. They're not gone, they live in our hearts. That's really where they live. And they manifest in a physical form for a certain period of time. Does anyone else, or does anyone have a question? So today should be that. Today should be joy. It should be love. And I don't think anyone here ever met Rudy. But without Rudy having been in the world, this wouldn't be here. My daughter said to me, I'm so grateful that Rudy passed his life on to you, because if he didn't pass his life on to you, I wouldn't have been born. Very interesting observation. So if he didn't pass his life on to me and give me the strength to do what I do, these classes would never exist. Or at least I wouldn't be doing them. And God knows if I would have lived 5 more years after he passed on, but it was that incredible training that enabled me to continue and do this. So Samadhi is a day of joy. It's a day of love. It's a day of happiness. And above everything else, it's a day of gratitude. Does anyone else have a question they would like to ask? Okay, if there are no more questions or no questions, God bless you all. There'll be a meditation tomorrow, 1 o'clock my time and whatever time that is your time. And, I hope, at least, I really hope that you, myself, we all take this deeply into our hearts and we really learn the true meaning of gratitude. And the sharp edge of bitterness and unhappiness, it'll just disappear. And it'll allow that energy of God to truly manifest through us in the world as love, as happiness, as joy, as fun, laughter. So bless you all. Thank you. And I'm looking forward to seeing everybody tomorrow. God bless you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Welcome.